the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 171 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. I'm sure many of you are getting tired of listening to my introduction now after 171 podcasts. There's quite a few actually out there who have read me and said you've listened to every single one. So yeah, I will keep them going, as I said, guys. I don't see myself ever stopping, so we'll just keep cranking them out, getting a variety of different guests on. But today we're going to be talking actually with Peter Van Hussen. Peter's a long-term resident, business owner, developer, and real estate agent for Century 21 in Jaco. Peter has a very, I would say, colorful background here. He's owned at a hotel in Jaco for over 12 years, was the general manager for Daystar Properties, one of the country's largest developers. Now focuses his time on developing and basically helping people buy farms and hotels throughout Costa Rica. So he's one of the few guys that I can say is qualified to guide people to investing in Costa Rica, and just again knows farms really, really well, subdivisions, water, etc. So just really knows his business really well because he's been here in Costa Rica for probably over 20 years, I believe. So today we're going to be talking to him about his advice and also his experience. Remember, guys, if you want to reach out to us, you can do. I love chatting with you. I chatted with a listener this morning. It was great. Actually, we're going to help him out, it sounds like, with a build up in the Samara area. So anyone that's doing anything here in Costa Rica is really looking for someone to be on their side to kind of guide them and make sure they're making the right decisions. Again, we're always on your side of the transaction. Again, we've done everything from, helping people invest into condos, help build land, develop hotels. We have a lot of data. So we provide a lot of data as kind of the logic behind what, in Costa Rica is an emotional investment. So we do provide a lot of the logic, and sometimes we'll tell you we don't think Costa Rica is the right investment for you if we don't believe it to be. So, but anyway, enough of me talking. Let's get straight into the podcast with Peter. Good morning, Peter. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning, Richard. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you in the virtual world. We were in the physical world before having lunch, and now we're in the virtual world. So
yeah, it was a good sandwich.
Exactly. Well, let's get straight into it. As I know you're a very busy man, juggling many chainsaws all over the country.
As you are also.
I think we both are, right? We keep busy. It keeps us young. It keeps us young, Peter.
That's true.
Exactly. But I mean, I always like to ask the first question just to get an idea of kind of, your perspective on the market here in Costa Rica. I mean, I've asked quite a few actually North Americans over the past day kind of what's happening in real estate up there. And they're sort of saying like it's still moving. They're starting to see a bit of a slowdown up there. Mortgage rates, I think, are having an impact in there. But I mean, what are you seeing here in Costa Rica? And do you think it's a seller's market? Do you think it's a buyer's market? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think definitely it's a buyer's market at this moment.
Yep.
I don't think the hype of Costa Rica will never disappear. That's what I think. I think also that I believe very much in authenticity of the people, which is basically a very, very big brand of Costa Rica. And I also think that the real estate business is basically connected with the tourism business also. I think they go hand in hand. So if tourism goes well, the real estate also goes well. I think they're brother and sister, basically. Right now in Jaco, we have about 5-6 condominium projects, and they go like hot items over floor. Local market, basically. The big 60-70% is local market, and the rest is foreign. So the Costa Ricans do have money, and they do like to go to the beaches. They do like Jaco because it's basically the very first beach destination after San Jose, and it's short by. And you have the 27, the 27, of course, the highway. So it's for them, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So I think that overall the single family homes are missing at this moment, very much in the market.
Yep.
I think that the developers are really scary to get into a project. Buying land is easy. Let's say buying land is 10% of the 100%, and the 30% is the infrastructure 30% profits, 10-15% marketing administration, and then a famous 10% no shit fund, what they call the emergency fund.
Which you always need.
Which you need always a no shit fund here in this
Exactly.
country. There's always something coming up. So overall, I think that the country is a buyer's market. For in my section, the land and the hotels, they go very slow at the moment, especially the lands. Hotels also. I do not think that, and don't hold me up to it, that the model here in Costa Rica, what we call the pymes, pequeño mediana empresa, the small hotels, is a dying model. That's what I think. It's financial. It's not going the right way.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean,
we had the bed and breakfast first, and then we had the inns. They all went dead. Right now we have the pymes. And I think that you were in the ICT in the marketing department, but the model on itself is a model that's really is going to be extinct in the next years probably. And why is that? Because the hotel business really is starting to be productive from 30 rooms, 40 rooms and up.
Yep.
And the average in the country, the total amount of rooms between the hotel of hotels, is about 16, 17 rooms per hotel about. So it's a dying model.
Well, but Peter, you don't think that model is like changing, meaning that I think, what I've started to see is, probably in the 80s and 90s, a lot of people were looking to develop boutique hotels here, have boutique hotels. I think what I'm seeing a lot more now of is individuals that potentially want a piece of land with vacation rentals on. So, it's transitioned from boutique hotels to now being like, okay, I may have a house with some vacation rentals on.
Right. That's true. The boutique hotel is still not the average. Boutique hotel starts from 30 rooms and up. So a boutique hotel, from definition, is a better financial entity than just a small hotel of 15, 16 rooms. Then, of course, we have the big problems right now. We are still in reactivation of the COVID. We have the exchange course, which is completely killing tourism right now. But 10-15% of the profits are going the local loan rate versus the dollar. So, and then tourism is just a very variable business, very high risk business right now. You remember Roberto Artavia from the Incaye?
Yep.
And he basically told us in a seminar, every 6 years, we have a crisis. We have something coming up. We have a hurricane, or we have COVID. Or
2028. We had 2022. We've got 2028. We still have 5 years.
About 4 of them in 5 years or something. So you take that in consideration also when you start to invest in tourism. There is this variable or a crisis coming up every 4 or 5 years, and
why would you do it? Why would you do it? I mean, why would you ever invest in Costa Rica, Peter?
That's what the Minister of Tourism said, Carlos Royce, in his days. You have to be a sadomasochist to really invest in a little hotel. That's what he said, literally.
Wow. Because
you're a slave of your job. You invest in something that is not bringing you a good return. Agustin Monge always said, if you make 10%, it's a miracle in the hotel business, a small hotel business. You cover your salary and your cost basically, and it's a lifestyle type of investment. So I think developers are scared. The farms and hotels. Farms is a good business, I think. Land banking right now. Invest in lands and you just sit on it for the next 10, 20 years. And I think that's a very good investment. So basically,
am I crazy then to be developing, Peter? Like, developing luxury tree houses in Mount Antonio, doing stuff in Arenal?
I think that if you create an experience, like we talked about, like Hans You can basically charge anything what you like. A treehouse experience. You can
I think
can
that
charge.
that's it.
That's
That's
it.
it though, really, right?
That's the
Like,
key.
okay,
That's the answer.
because like Origins Lodge doesn't have that many rooms, and it's further up north in Nupala, in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
it does really well. But again, it charges like $1,500 a night. I mean, to have
Right.
a small boutique hotel now, you need to be, probably upwards of $600 a night to make it work, just because of your payroll costs and social security, etc. But I mean,
Exactly right.
yeah, so I think that like what I've seen is people, transition away from boutique hotels where it was in the 80s and 90s to now more vacation rentals, whereas we didn't have that before. It's like a new sect of tourism, if that makes sense, which tourism hates, of course, because they're like, oh, it takes people away from the hotels. And I might look, I'm always a believer of like the tide rises, all boats rise. So like, look, it's just more marketing, it's more money. Like as long as everyone's playing at the same level, paying their taxes, etc., then it's a capitalistic, free trade. Like the cream will float to the top.
Right. You take an opportunity and you establish and a marketing plan, and you make money on that return.
Yeah, I mean,
You
and you
take
have to surf
advantage
the
of it.
wave. You have to surf
You
it.
have to
Like,
surf
okay,
the
we're going to
wave.
see exchange rates changing. We're going to see other stuff happening. Like,
Yeah,
and
but
it's
that's
everywhere.
exactly the I think the default right now, or the downfall of the tourism. They're not innovating. They're not growing with the market. They're not changing their marketing strategy. Before the COVID, we had a lot of group business, for example, the boomers that were traveling quite a bit. After the COVID, I think that has changed also.
Yeah.
The product is the same, but the owners and the hotel marketing is completely the same as before. They're not changing their strategies, and I think tourism is not growing enough really to attack all those threats like the COVID and right now terrorism probably will come up again. We have to be unique, and we have to start growing as
Yeah, I
a
mean,
tourism product.
I mean, I agree. Look, 2024 looks like better than 2023. 2023 was the best year ever for tourism in this country, and
Right.
2024 high season is looking great as well. But I don't know whether I fully agree with you, Peter, from the point of view of that, like the country has focused a lot more on wellness. It didn't have that wellness before. Like it was set up, but there has been a focus on wellness, which has created areas like Nosara, Santa Teresa, the southern zones, where there's been more of a focus. And I think there's going to be more of a demand for that. But I agree that like Costa Rica seems to just do stuff organically. Like there doesn't seem to be a plan laid out for the next 20 years of how Costa Rica is sustainably going to develop, its brand.
Yeah. I was part of the planning process of the marketing plan for the country in its start. And I brought up the competition of the condos, for example, the condo business, and they said, no, that's no problem. We'll beat them forever, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. I would suspect that the Airbnb movement is also they brought them by surprise, basically the ICT, and this was not part of the marketing planning or as a threat of the whole country. So I don't think they are. I don't think they're that aggressive, really. And I'm very afraid of the pymes. I'm very afraid of the small hotels. I'm afraid that that's going to be extinct if there are no incentives, that there are no perks. If you charge $300 or $400 a night for a small hotel, yes, that's no problem at all. But the $80 to $120 establishment room, 16, 17 rooms, they're going to be dead without any perks, without any incentives.
I agree, but I don't see that changing, Peter. I mean, I think this Costa Rica is now an expensive destination to come to. Its brand, is very well known, but it's an expensive brand as well, but the question here is do people still see the value in that? When they're paying $300 a night, are they still getting that value and that experience in Costa Rica? And I mean, I don't bump into many people that say, I hated my vacation to Costa Rica. Quite the opposite. It was like, it was the best vacation I ever had.
Right.
You know,
Too expensive, but again, if you pay $300-400 a night, then then it's not too expensive.
oh,
But the low market, and that will weed it out automatically also.
sure. And I mean, really, are we that expensive compared to Hawaii and Cabo San Lucas and those kind of areas? You know, probably not.
Probably not, but still, I think we have that image right now at this moment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I think a lot of the stuff that Costa Rica has done is very organic. Like there has been plans, but little plans. And it's all happened kind of organically, which is the beauty. And I think, as you said at the beginning here, of the number one asset of this country is its people. Like it's the number one thing, you know.
I completely agree. But that is changing too a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I arrived here in 81, and I think the difference of authenticity of the people between 1981 and right now there's a huge difference between that. So we have to be careful. I think we have to really sit in a room together and really start to plan ahead what we're going to do. And what you said, in the next 20 years or 30 years. And a visionary, a futurist.
I'd love to be part of that conversation, dude.
What would be like to be in 30 years or 40 years as a futurist? What is our vision over 40 years or 50 years?
Yeah, I would love to be part of that conversation.
Me too.
You know, just
put me in.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's
then as a realtor, not the towers in Jaco, but sustainable development.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's say we got in a time machine, Peter. Let's say that say we went 20 years in the future. What do you think what would you like to see the country look like in 20 years?
Let me first tell you what I'm afraid of right now. I'm afraid of that we're losing our eco image.
Yep.
That's going to be overdeveloped. And I state Tamarindo, Mano Antonio, Jaco. Mano Antonio, for example, a national park, is dreadful. If you go down there, you cannot even get a ticket nowadays. And they're there. So I'm very afraid of the overdevelopment. I'm very afraid of security issues right now.
Yeah. I think that's on everyone's mind.
Organized crime, but this started already 15-20 years ago. I was president of the Chamber of Tourism, and I remember Fernando Berrocal, he used to be the minister of security, and he compared Costa Rica with a 5-story beautiful condo, and Costa Rica is right in the middle. It's completely furnished, and it's nice carpets, and all the rodents from Central America, from both sides, all the rodents and cockroaches are going to Costa Rica from Central America.
Yeah,
that always was knowledge in Costa Rica. I think right now that the security issue, for example, here in Jaco, we had 4 deaths last week. Right on the streets. And they're narc oriented. But
Colombians, right? If I'm correct.
Colombians.
Yep.
But it gives us a very bad image. Also, I read an article somewhere that it's not really the security issue. It's between the narcs. They're getting paid in drugs.
Yep.
So, and they're fighting the gangs fighting between each other. And how can you attack that? How can you resolve that issue? It's going to be a long-term process also, and very hard to resolve. Also with the current economical crisis what Costa Rica is facing. So that worries me tremendously, the whole the security issue. The government is it's very hard to govern the country right now with so many parties. So that frightens me.
And that's not going to change though either.
That's
but I think
change.
I always say to people that
we had a 2 or 3 party country, and it was a lot easier just to do stuff, although they were very much corrupt also, but it was easier just to do stuff. Right now it's very hard to get anything going, and that frightens me also.
What do you look forward to in 20 years? I mean, what are some of the stuff that
sustainable? We are a sustainable country. Wellness, I think that's definitely a very good point. I like the communities, that people are living in communities together, own food, own food supply, own water, own electricity, own rules, basically. their own Indian tribe rules in a circle, and that's how I see Costa Rica probably in the next 20-30 years. Good food, permaculture, wellness, and the beaches, but sustainable, not overdeveloped, and not like in Mexico where we have this big pushy kind of tourism where everybody is aggressive on the streets. And I hope that Costa Rica is not turning that way, and I'm afraid it will probably if they're not planning ahead.
I think, if I look 20 years in the future, what my advice would be to Costa Rica is just to try and stay as raw and authentic as possible, to what it is. And how do you do that? And I would be incentivizing some form of agro-tourism model where you give, whether that's international development bank loans, whether it's government loans at low interest for people to be able to purchase bits of land in more rural areas of Costa Rica. Right. And provide jobs to those areas so that everyone doesn't have to move to the cities or doesn't need to move to the main tourism areas. But like there is a support for that authenticity and community in certain areas where you're buying local produce. They did it in Italy, agritourism. Just let's follow that model. It was great. Everyone was moving to cities. They were losing that authenticity of making pastas and pizzas and like being, within the towns and villages. But like, I think that a focus on that would very much help draw people out of the cities.
I share that completely. The communities, the local El Campo, what we call, the local people, agro-ecoturismo. That is exactly what
who's done a great job at that, Peter? Jim Damanis. So Jim Damanis has Santa Juana Lodge. Like he set up Santa Juana Lodge because he used to drive up there and grab a beer, on the way up there from this guy that had this block of ice that would cool beers. And on Fridays and Saturdays, that's how he made money. He would sell beers to people coming up, cycling or driving up. And he got to know them, got to know the town, bought some land and created what I think might be the first community hotel where it's run by the community there. Yeah. Kids that had moved down to Quepos and Manuel Antonio are now moving back up to Santa Juana and creating this very unique, authentic experience.
Right. I know the area. I know the hotel also. I love it. I love it.
And Jim's not involved in it. Like he is giving it to the community.
Yeah, I went down there twice, I think. Yep. And I had a casado down there. Yeah. Being served by a local woman and yep. Beautiful service and very great energies and no tourism, which
it's authentic, dude, and raw. I mean, it's
beautiful. So I share that. I share that, but we have to promote that.
Correct.
There has to be some kind of planning and incentives also from the government, from the ICT.
Yeah, I know. I was working with Diego from who's the Diputado on pushing through he was trying to change that for tourism you could use agricultural parcels for tourism, which was only a small thing, but like you could somewhat develop those agricultural lots to, if it was focused on tourism and you had your Declaración Turística and you had your CST sustainability, you had to get those things in order to do that. But it's. Yeah, maybe we'll be part of that discussion, Peter. But let me change gears. Yeah, let me change gears a little bit here into I suppose, investing in Costa Rica. I mean, what mistakes do you typically see people make when investing in Costa Rica? And I'm sure that you've seen a lot of them over the years, dude.
Do you know the term, the tropical sunshine syndrome?
Yes.
Okay, but that is a term by the Tico Times already 20 years ago. People are having their shield down. The best businessmen in the world, they go to Costa Rica and they have their shield down and they just invest in things and they don't do a feasibility study, don't do a marketing study, don't do planning.
It's incredible.
Saying how to become a millionaire: arrive with $2 million and lose $1 million, right?
Yeah.
That is basically the trick. So. For example, in hotel business, I'm selling them a hotel. 90% will say, I'm not doing a feasibility study. Right? I'm not really I don't think that's necessary. I like the hotel. I like the lifestyle. I like that whole tropical things around it. I like the food. I like the people. And that is, I think, the biggest mistake here in Costa Rica. The tropical sunshine syndrome. they're they're letting their shield down, and they're not really thinking what they're used to in their own countries as a business. And
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that because I hear it all the time of like, I don't know whether it's the first, like, they get off the plane, people get off the plane and have one, pina colada, and then like everything goes out the window. It's just, oh, everything's so great here. It's sunny. Everyone's so nice, but like,
yeah,
nothing's ever going to happen. I
the
mean,
pura
yeah,
vida life. Exactly.
exactly. I'll give the construction guy 50% of the money down,
Yeah.
Um,
I had an example last week. I have a client who's doing some construction at his house in Hermosa Palms, and he's a construction guy, and the guy didn't have any insurance, so the
yep.
guy fell off the roof, and who is being sued is the owner of the condo. Why? Because never he forgot to check with the construction guy to if they're
Make
part of
sure
a
he was,
casa, if they have an
yeah,
insurance. And he just says, well, it's a good price. There is no, we don't have to pay any taxes, and it's a good price. So that is one example. In their own country, they would never do that. They would
yep.
never do that. They would take the job and they will really check everything out. So that is possibly one of the biggest problems, I think, here in the country. People don't have the guard; they have the guard down in the middle. For example, I came here in '81, and I still being hustled still by the locals. The difference is that I know about it, and I'm
I'm the
not
same.
talking.
Yeah. Your Jedi
I
mind tricks
take it
don't
in a
work on me.
balance. I do myself a daily cost benefit analysis, and I think by myself, okay, this suits me. I know I'm being ripped off so much, but again, this is no problem. It's still beneficial for me.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I think about the people. People are very
Yeah.
beautiful. They say yes to everything. They cannot say the word no.
Yep. If they say the word
People
maybe, if they say maybe
may
or stutter before saying yes, it probably is a
yes,
no.
it's a no. But if they say
Yeah.
yes, it's a no
It means a
also.
maybe. Well, and it can be a maybe. Yeah.
Mostly it's no. And if
Yeah.
you start to criticize them, if you
It's definitely
start
a
really
no.
criticize them, they completely collapse as a personal
Yeah.
human being. So positive reinforcement in management is very important. For
It is.
example, you're a great guy, and I love your family. I like your grandma, and I like your kids, and I like the way what you're doing, and you do very well this specific job. But you might have to change your habits in that specific way, and then
Yeah.
you might make a difference in your management style. But if you criticize them directly, they completely collapse
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Well, Peter, where do you think, I mean, looking ahead, let's say 20 years down the line, where would you be? Because you mentioned land banking earlier. Which areas of the country would you be land banking for 20 years in the future?
um land banking. As I told you before, Guanacaste for me is another country. I'm not don't know a lot about it. It's the same as in Mexico, basically. I don't know. Land banking everywhere. I think there are great deals to be made in land banking. Really cheap amount of lands with waterfalls, jungle, primary forest, secondary forest, good access. Um, Great for communities. Great for permaculture, good soil. A buck a meter for 50 hectares or less.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great, and it's great to have also. I love my farms. I do a lot of fruit trees, and I love my permaculture, and I love one of my passions is to plant a fruit tree, and then in 5 years you see the very first fruits coming out, and then for me,
Yep. I've got
I'm
my
happy.
avocado tree in my back garden there, which has given me fruit.
Hey,
It's got
I was
tons.
going to say a beautiful avocado tree, Richard. Beautiful.
Oh, there's about 170 avocados on it, and this is its second year flowering. Oh, it's insane.
So what do you feel? Fantastic, right?
It's pride, man. I mean, every time, I talk to my avocados, dude. Like, it's crazy. Like, I just go out there and just admire it every single day. Every time I walk past it, I admire my avocados, my lemons, my mandarins, my guanabana. Like, it's spectacular.
I have pitaya right now, the dragon fruit.
Dragon fruit, yep.
Eight different varieties, and you have to pollinate that at nighttime when the flower is coming up. Some varieties are not auto-pollinators, so you have to pollinate it. And so you go at nighttime with a flashlight and you pollinate it. Vanilla, for example, and you also have to auto-pollinate that with a toothpick. You have to open up the flower and then you press the two parts together. But again, to see that the very first vanilla bean coming up, and the pitaya fruits, I've got about 60-70 varieties of fruit trees down there, and it's just fantastic, really. And then with permaculture, a bunch of dogs, a bunch of goats, some chickens, and own food supply, like the old generation used to go. They used to go to parties, and they used to bring an avocado or some avocados to the parties, and they gave you lemons, and this interchange of food was very, very common in the old generations, and that we have to come back to.
I still do it. I go fishing in Camoranal, and Don Cedro, who sold his farm for millions, has his house, doesn't wear shoes, still does all of his own food, makes his own rice, and I camp on his land, and I say, "How much do I owe you?" And he usually says, "Just bring me a bunch of onions." And so I pay him in onions. And it's great because we'll sit down at the end of the day, and like, he just tells me about his life and growing up in that area and how it's changed. It's just, I mean, it's just beautiful listening to those stories.
I didn't know you had that in you. Those are the social, the development, the sustainable development communities, auto-sustainable. For example, you have an oversupply of eggs. You trade that in for chicken, or you trade that in for meats, for example. So it creates a whole bartering process in the farm itself, which is extremely interesting. Also, the sharing of information, that there are 20, 30, 40 engineers down there, and they could share that information to the younger kids. So you have this community that everybody's sharing. Neighbor has a car and I have a golf cart. You share it. That idea of the old generations, I think I hope that Costa Rica will form that, and I think there's a big future for that also touristically.
I agree. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I know that you're very passionate about farms and permaculture. I mean, when people are thinking about buying a farm in Costa Rica, I mean, what questions do you think they should be asking, and what things should they be looking out for?
That's a great question. Always do a due diligence on the farm. Always check the what we call the pajas de agua, your water connections, if there is a water supply. For example, on my farm, I have this issue. I have two issues with my farm is overlapping another property. So survey always is very important. Always a survey.
And typically there's inconsistencies, no?
Yeah,
typically there's inconsistencies.
There's always inconsistencies, or the neighbor is on your property, especially with the big farms, or there's an overlapping of different farms together on you. So you have to make a new plano, a new cadastral plan. So I would say a survey is extremely important. Due diligence, of course, the water supplies. What is tricky are the nacientes, the springs, because you buy a farm up and you need 100 meters distance on the la nacientes.
There's a setback of 100 meters.
Also, the neighbor, if he really wanna screw you, he can register your spring from your property without even having access, basically, on the spring. So there are a lot of
water is available to everyone here. Meaning that naciente you do not own. Like, it is public. It's public. as the beaches are.
So there is, for example, nacientes, the quebradas. You have to check the setbacks from the nacientes. Also the suelo, what we call the zoning law. What can you build on there? Restriction of heights. Hire an architect. I think that's important if you buy lands. Check out where your microclimates are. Check out where you got to build, the north side or the south sides. Check your how much forest do you have? What kind of forest do you have? The flat areas of where you can build. The sunset, in which direction. Also, sleep on your property. Camp out. Put a tent out there. Feel the energies of the specific areas in the farm. I heard from an architect of Hans, basically, go down there, check, stay down there at night, go a full moon, check the different energies of your area.
Yep.
Which is very important if you buy a big farm up, where you can build.
It's amazing that you mention energy, Peter, because I always say to people, and maybe it's something that we've got too far away, but like you can sense when you're on a piece of land if it's right or not a lot of the time. Like if you walk on something like a home, you can walk into a home sometimes and go, something is not right here. Sometimes you can't put your finger on it, but you just know it's not right. And I think it's something innate. It's innate in us, but we don't listen to it a lot of the time. You know,
exactly. Your gut. Do I like it here?
I love my gut.
There, have a beer, have a cooler of some beers, and sit down there, feel the breezes coming in your face.
See it at different times of the day. See it at morning. See it at midday. See it at evening.
It is know your farm, basically. Know everything about it. That's basically my recommendation.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because we may have covered it. But what asset classes in Costa Rican real estate do you think still hold value in today's market?
There is basically what is. I take the value determination always includes the holding periods, the life cycle of the hotel, which is extremely important, NOP factor, the net operating profit, the EBITDA, which is the earnings before interest and taxes and depreciation. You calculate a factor in there, the value of the construction, replacement value. I take in also the I call it the Artavia, like a variable. What you always put a variable also in there. Your room for expansion is extremely important.
Yep.
To take in there.
I had that conversation with a hotelier the other day.
Capital expenditures is very low. You determine your value on the existing NOP and existing building, and if it's shaky, you look for capital expenditures and a room for expansion. But first, you look at the current NOP. I translate my income statements into Usali. You know what Usali is?
No, I've never heard that.
Uniform system of approach in the lodging industry. It is a specific accounting system that you use in the lodging industry. For example, you determine the cost for every revenue center. Right here in Costa Rica, in a generic accounting system, you bunch everything together, all revenues and all costs, and you put that in an income statement.
You mean setting out rooms, separating food and beds?
You have a room, you set up your energy costs for the room, your room revenue, so you know exactly the net income and the net cost per revenue center. For example, the food and beverage is always very tricky.
Yep.
You put your food costs down there, but the energy, the cost of your energy, you put that also in that bracket just for the food and beverage department, and all your taxes, the gas, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that gives you an idea where your profit is located. Room, of course, is always about 75% of all profits is room. Food and beverage is about 25%, 30-25% depends on your food and beverage business. If you have a lot of special events, and it's about 40%. But it gives you an insight what is happening in your hotel. Very important cost structures and revenue structures. Revenue management is very important, I would say.
It's one thing that a lot of people don't think about is revenue management, and it's the most important thing. I'm doing some consulting work for a company at the moment where I'm like, look, guys, nothing else matters unless you have the revenue coming in. So like, don't talk about the rest of it until you got the revenue going in.
Right. Extremely important. Extremely important for your
nothing else happens until there's a sale.
No, nobody's doing that. Revenue management is something that is completely necessary. Feasibility studies, of course, marketing studies, SWOT analysis, also very important in your calculations, and planning. I plan ahead. I try to get as much information as possible in my analysis.
Awesome. Well, Peter, my last question for you, as I've kept you long enough, which I love to ask everyone. If you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why?
First, my own development. Made my own development. I would put some model homes on there and greenhousing. And I believe right now, which is probably unique, that I was planning that to put a business in a sustainable development. For example, I would like to, as a crop, I would like to have langoustines or shrimp. Part of the revenues goes to the HOA in the community. So the community is living down there, but also it's like part of a business. So you create a business in the development. And I think that's a pretty unique structure of developments also, or housing developments. I would invest it in that, and I would probably create my own fishing charter in the Gulf, fishing with caña, the Costa Rican way. The Costa Rican way. I want to do that, and also helping the local communities. I think the Gulf is one of those areas. Costa Pájaros, Chomis, is one of those areas that has been completely neglected by tourism. And you still see down there a lot of interesting people. For example, I went to buy some gas for my boat, and I saw a gun laying on the table at 8 o'clock at night. It's not dangerous, but it's a little bit like the Wild West down there in the Costa Pájaros area.
I remember you'd be driving and you'd be running out of gas. There were no gas stations, and there'd be like these, these guys selling the pichelas.
Exactly.
Like the black market for gas. Go and knock on so-and-so's door.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I would invest in flipping houses, probably renovating them. There's enough to renovate, enough to buying also.
I agree. We've done a couple of those, and it's been very successful. You just need to know what you're doing and have a good team with you.
Yeah.
Very difficult to do if you're not in country.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
and that's one of my advice also for a business, starting business for an American. Be here. You cannot have a business delegating it to somebody else. You have to be here doing it yourself. And that is probably one of the biggest problems a lot of foreigners have. They cannot delegate. You have to be really here to do it. Otherwise, it's suicide basically for your business. It's very hard.
Well, I think you mentioned it. A lot of the time it's a lifestyle decision, investing in Costa Rica in general. But it's like, the great thing is you get to see, when you had your property, you get to see the best of people. Like you see them on vacation. Like nobody cares who you are, what job you have, what money you have. Everyone just be like, hey, you want to sit down, have a beer and just talk? Right.
Comparing to the cruise ships, I worked on a cruise ship for 3 years, and that's a whole other story.
I'm sure. Wow. Well, Peter, this has been great getting you on here. I'd love to get you back on in a couple of months and just get a bit of an update from you, but appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, sir.
Anytime. Rich. Thanks.
You have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Peter. I think Peter, probably talked a lot about kind of some of the problems that we have, but there's a lot of, greatness here in Costa Rica as well. I think it's also important to talk about those problems. I think the number one thing on most people's mind here in Costa Rica at the moment is just security. Just the areas of kind of Punta Arenas and Limon. There's just been a bit of, I would say, gang-related stuff there. It hasn't really hit, I would say, the major tourist areas. Unfortunately, it did in Jaco the other day, but really hasn't touched tourists yet. So, I was in a meeting the other week with some of the heads of, the government here, and they're trying to formulate a plan here on what to do, because they do know who the heads of these organizations are. So, and again, I'm almost sure that the US will get involved, as it always does down here. I always like to sometimes mention that Costa Rica is like the 53rd state of the US. So, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Peter is a wealth of knowledge, especially in hotels. He owned ones here and has helped many people invest in hotels, as well as also land here and farms and permaculture and communities. He's been here since the 80s, so he's been here a very, very long time, which is always great to get that perspective there. And again, things are changing rapidly in Costa Rica, as everything does. And, as I like to say, you've just got to surf the wave. It's being stuck, I think, to this is the way we're going to do it, and this is the only way. It can sometimes be detrimental to most businesses, as I'm sure some of you have experienced. But I think it's just, you just always need to be flexible and ready to just change your business model. The clients are constantly changing, as we mentioned there in the podcast about the wellness, when I first got here, the word wellness really wasn't there, but it's come on very strong, and the country's really leveraged that going forwards. And it is a great destination for just wellness and sense of being. So, but if you want to reach out to us, you can do, guys. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. That link is also in the description down below, whatever you're doing here in Costa Rica. And again, I'm happy to chat with anyone here. I know quite a few of you are like, Richard, I've listened to the podcast now. I think I'm ready to chat when doing something here in Costa Rica. And again, it's no obligation on my part. I'll tell you about our services, what we can do. But if we can't, I'll point you in the right direction of somebody that can help you as well. So a lot of people say I'm a lot more direct when I actually talk to them face to face, and I'm usually like, guys, I've got usually 30 minutes with you, so it's not going to be 20 minutes of us chatting about random stuff. It's like, let me try and give you that information all within 30 minutes so that you guys can make a informed decision, whatever that decision will be. So but anyway, till the next podcast, really appreciate it, guys. If you've enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars, keep sharing the podcast, and we'll keep getting them out there. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.